Hello, friends. It's Jessica here. Welcome back to Jessie Kate Creates. In today's video, I am making a Christmas card inspired by this 3D vintage ornaments embossing folder from Spellbinders. So I'm going to start today by making the panel I want to emboss. So I have a piece of 4 1/4 by 5.5 80-pound cardstock, and I've been really into ink blending lately, so that's what we're going to do to this panel. So I have 3 shades of green from Concord and Ninth. This is Sea Glass, Clover, and Evergreen. And I'm just going to blend on all of these colors. I'm not going to go super in depth here, but I do have another video, I'll link it up here, where I show you how I like to do my ink blending. Here, I couldn't get all the way to the edge of the panel, so I flipped it around, and I'm just using a piece of scrap paper to protect my panel so I don't get any dark thumbprints in it, because it's the worst when you're working on a project and you get a really bad thumbprint. So once I've blended on all 3 of my colors, I did go through each color 2 times. This is the panel we got, and it looks lovely. And while I have all my inky tools out, I'm just going to set that to the side and grab an insert that I'm going to use inside of my card. So this panel is 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm just using some of the residual ink from my blending foams to add a little bit of color so that the inside of the card is cohesive with the outside of the card. Okay, so now I have my card front panel, and I decided I wanted to add some sparkle to this. So I have my DIY sparkle spray. This is just water and perfect pearls, and I'm going to very generously cover my panel with this spritz so that it's going to be nice and shiny, because who doesn't love a sparkly Christmas card, right? So I'm going to set that aside to dry. And while that was drying, I looked through my stash. Like I said, this embossing folder is what inspired me. So I was looking through my stash to see if I had anything that coordinated well with it. And what I found was this Spellbinders Stitched Curved Border and Ornaments die. This was the small die of the month in November 2021. For most of 2021, I was subscribed to a couple of the Spellbinders collection kits. And unfortunately, a lot of those dies and stamp sets, I haven't busted them out and I haven't used them. So I'm trying to do that now. Right now, I know Spellbinders has their fall warehouse sale, and both this embossing folder and this die set are part of it. But I'm trying to tell myself, you already have Spellbinders products in your stash that you haven't used. So instead of buying new things, use the things you already have. You know, imagine they just came to the house yesterday and you're excited to use them and use them up. So if you need these items, you can purchase them. I'll have links to them down below. But as always, I encourage you to use the items you already have in your stash instead of feeling like you have to go out and buy something new to recreate one of these cards that I make. So back to the ornaments, I went ahead and cut out each of the ornaments from a coordinating color of Concord and Ninth cardstock. So I did Sea Glass, Clover, and Evergreen. And then I cut the backers for all of the ornaments out of white cardstock. Now, something interesting about this die set is they are meant to be stitched. So here I have this DMC metallic thread in like a silvery color. And I also have these needles. I think these are meant for upholstery repair, but they have a really big eye, and the tip of the needle isn't super sharp and pointy. So that's what I'm using today, which look at how easy I was able to thread that. Boom, right through the eye of that needle in one pass, which was great because this is my first time doing this type of stitching on cards. I know for the past few years, especially Spellbinders and some other companies have come out with some of these like stitching dies, and they look really cool, and it's cool to see other people use them, but I have never tried it before. So this was my first time giving it a go. And just in full transparency, I kind of thought I was going to hate this. Like, one of the reasons I haven't tried it before is because to me, stitching on cards looks very tedious, which so interesting with paper crafting, something that someone else loves, we might not enjoy, and vice versa. But I decided these were pretty small dies, so it was worth it to give it a try. And I actually really enjoyed this. It was a lot easier than I thought it would be, and it went a lot quicker than I thought it would go. Now, I don't know if I'd necessarily have the patience to like stitch out a big full panel, but small little dies like this, yeah, thumbs up. I enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below if you like stitching on your cards or not, or if it's something you've tried. Now that I know I don't hate it, I'm probably gonna, use a couple more dies like this that are meant to be stitched. So yeah, it's fun to try new techniques in the craft room. Okay, so now that I've stitched out all of these ornaments, I'm gonna go ahead and adhere them to their backers. I did test using that same metallic paper for the backers on these, but I didn't love it. I thought the thread popped more on the white, so that's what I ended up going with. So here now I'm just attaching the toppers for each of the ornaments, just using some wet glue and trying to use the lines on my mat to get everything nice and straight. And this is what the dies look like once they're done. I think these are adorable and they're going to look so cute on the card. So now it's time to move back to our background panel. So you can see it has curled and warped from all of the shimmer spray I put on it, but that is going to be fixed when we run it through the embossing folder. So I just have a spray bottle with some water in it, and I'm just spritzing the back of my panel a few times, and then I'm going to put it inside the embossing folder, making sure not to accidentally fold the corners like you saw there, and make sure it's nice and straight so that the ornaments turn out straight on the card. And then I'm just going to run that through my machine. And when it's done, you get the most beautiful 3D background. I think this would be gorgeous with just a sentiment on it and like call it good to go. But of course I have the little ornaments I just made, so we're gonna use those. So now I have to pick a sentiment for my card. I knew I wanted it to kind of look like this, and I wanted the sentiment there at the bottom. So I looked through my stash for something that I thought would work, and I found this Hero Arts Sentiment Strip stamp set. The cool thing about this stamp is it's one giant stamp that has a bunch of tiny sentiments on it, and then Hero Arts also sells this sentiment strip die that you can place right on top to cut out all of those different sentiment strips. Now, this die coordinates with a couple other stamps they have in this same style. So they have one for everyday sentiments, one for encouragement sentiments. I actually did a collaboration with Hero Arts where I use the encouragement ones, and I will link that here in this video and in the description box if you want to see that. But today we are using the Christmas sentiments. Now, with big stamps like this, I find it's easier for me to leave the stamp attached to the backing and just tape it into my MISTI like you see me doing here. That's easier to me than trying to peel a giant stamp off of its backing. So that's why there's all that painter's tape on my MISTI door. But anyway, I'm stamping this down with some mushroom ink from Concord and Ninth. It's a nice deep gray that's going to match all of the silver accents we have on our card. So once I have that stamped down, I'm going to use that die and run it through my Cricut to cut out all of these sentiments. And this is really nice too, because I have signed up for a bunch of craft fairs, and having these sentiments already cut out is going to make it easier for me to bulk make some cards in the future. So for today, I picked a sentiment that says, "Have a magical holiday." And I'm using my paper trimmer to cut this down because I am really bad at cutting straight lines with scissors. So once I had that cut out, I decided it was kind of small and I wanted it to take up a bit more space on my card. So I'm going to mat this in some of the same silver cardstock that we used for the ornament toppers. And then once again, I'm going to use my paper trimmer to cut this out so I don't have to struggle with a pair of scissors. All right, so once that is complete, we have our sentiment ready to go. And the last thing to do before I begin assembling the card is to trim down my ink blended and embossed panel. I'm going to cut this down to be 4 by 5 1/4 so that there is a small white border on the card. Yeah, so once that's trimmed down, it's time to get everything assembled. So for the ornament, I took the one that I want to be in the center of my card, and I am popping that up on foam tape for a little bit of extra dimension on my card. And for each of the ornaments, I took some of that silver thread and I just strung it through the ornament tops. And I'm using some painter's tape to tack that down on the back of my panel. Now for the other two ornaments, I'm just going to put those on my card flat with some wet glue. I figured between the one popped up ornament and the 3D embossing, we had enough dimension on this card. Now for this third ornament, I noticed it was too wide to fit on the card, so I did need to cut it down. And I was just very mindful not to cut into those holes that I used for the thread so that it wouldn't come undone. So I just popped that on the card and tacked down the ends. And then I'm going to put wet glue all over the back of my panel to adhere it to my card base. For my card base, I am using an A2 white side folding card base, and I'm just going to tack that down. Whenever I use a panel that I ran through a 3D embossing folder, I try to make sure to press down the corners and the edges really well. Otherwise, they kind of tend to pop up, which it's not the end of the world, but I like it for everything to be tacked down well. So I'm just pressing on those corners, and sorry my camera cut off, but I just used a little bit of foam tape to pop up the sentiment onto the card. So now it's time to work on the inside of the card. We have that panel that we did the little bit of ink blending onto earlier. And I have this Merry Everything stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. And there's a really pretty sentiment in there. I think it says believe in the wonder of the holidays. And I thought that was just so lovely for this card. So I'm stamping that down with the same mushroom ink that we used for our sentiment on the front of the card. And I think that's a really nice way to bring everything together because the same colors that are on the front of the card are on the inside of the card. So it makes it, nice and cohesive. So once I add that panel to the inside of the card, it is time to put our finishing touches on the front of the card. And for that, I am using these Spellbinders Color Essential Gems in the color Opal. These are one of my all-time favorite embellishments. I usually have multiple packs of these on hand because it's just like a shimmery white color, and I think that goes with a bunch of different card styles and occasions. So I always have these on hand, and I'm just using some of the bigger crystals and placing those in the middle of each of my ornaments to really finish those off. And I like the way it looks, and I like the little extra bit of sparkle I add to the card. I thought about putting these gems all over the background of the card. I decided not to do it, but I might go back at some point and add more if I change my mind. So this is our card. I'm really happy with the way this turned out, but there's one more thing we still need to do, and that is to create a matching envelope for this card. So I have this deep green envelope. I buy my envelopes from clearbags.com. I'll have them linked down below. And I went through my stash and I looked for something that had ornaments on it. And it is another Spellbinders stamp set from their clear stamp set of the month from November 2021. One of those borders just has a bunch of ornaments on it, and I thought that fit perfectly. So I am using that deep evergreen ink that I used on the front of the card to ink up the stamp set and stamp it onto my envelope. You don't have to make matching envelopes for your cards, but I think it's just a nice, fun little touch that you can add to make it, really feel like a complete package. And that way, when someone gets the card in the mail, they know right away, this is not a bill. This is like a special, fancy, fun card that I am getting. So when I can, I do like to decorate my envelopes. So with that stamping done, that finishes off the card and envelope. I am so happy with how all of this turned out. I think it's so cute together. I don't think the camera picks up the shimmer on these cards very well, but I love this card so much. I made it in 2 other color combinations. So I did a pink and red card, but I think my absolute favorite was this blue combination that I did. Oh, it's sparkly and shimmery and just so pretty, and it feels like winter to me. Those are the cards I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope something in here inspires you to get creative and use the items you have in your craft room. If you like the video, give it a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you always catch my latest videos. I'll see you soon. Bye.